Hello, everyone. Welcome to Move Daily Fitness. And we are here again with Dr. Sharon Stills. If you've been a part of our membership or you've followed us in our Move Daily Hustle group, you will have seen Dr. Sharon. And of course, a lot of you would probably have seen her in the Menopause Summit that she hosts each year. It's an awesome summit where people like us go and find out about things about menopause, which is amazing because there's so much to know about menopause. But she's here today to talk to us. We're going to talk a little bit about belly fat in menopause. I hear it a lot. A lot of people are concerned. A lot of people have seen an increase in belly fat through menopause. And we just kind of want to get the skinny, no pun intended, on how to manage belly fat and menopause. So, Dr. Sharon, welcome to Move Daily podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, I'd love to know what in your office, in your work, what's the percentage of women who come in who say, "Help me, I have gained belly fat and I don't know what to do."
Yeah, it's a high percentage. It's something that I see commonly, and there's a number of things that I start to look at so we can get that meno belly or the menopause, going in the reverse direction. It's especially concerning for women who have never had a belly, who've never had an issue with the weight. And then all of a sudden they're like, what is going on? And so we really need to look at a couple of things, and we can go through them. We need to look at the adrenal glands. We need to look at our insulin. We need to look at our thyroid, and we need to look at our sex hormones.
Okay.
And that's kind of from the medicine perspective, of course, also toxicity and diet and things. And then, of course, we need to figure out our movement and tie that in with it, which is your department.
Yeah. But that's the thing, right? It's not just one solution. It's multifaceted, I think. And I think people just go, well, I must be eating wrong. That must be the only thing. And if I just change this and go on a drastic diet, then I'll lose the belly fat. And they try things, maybe they tried in the past and they don't work any longer. And so by virtue of that, there must be something with our age, with our hormones, with our thyroid, like you said, insulin, like all of those things now come into play. And yeah, how do we break that down and figure out who the culprit is that is causing this belly fat gain, or is it all of them? Well, let's jump into insulin. Talk to us about how insulin plays a role in adding belly fat through this time in menopause.
Yeah, and just to add on what you said, it is multifactorial, and it's not, I wish it was just like the one thing always for every woman, because that would, I could just tell you the magic secret now and everyone could get rid of their bellies. And unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. And so insulin is an interesting one because as our estrogen drops, we become more insulin resistant and we're not able to get glucose into the cells. And so we're depositing fat, and that fat likes to be deposited around. It's like an evil trick, but it's like our fat likes to be deposited around our bellies and our upper thighs. And that's where women are seeing the weight coming on. And so when we're thinking about insulin, a lot of that has to do with our diet. And are we eating properly? Are we getting enough protein? Are we getting the sugars out? Are we getting the alcohol out? Sorry, ladies, but alcohol is a big no-no. It really, if you are someone who your way of chillaxing at the end of the night is a couple of glasses of wine, it's time to relook at that.
Take up knitting. It's time to take up knitting.
Yeah. And, sometimes we have, wine, alcohol can be addictive. It can be suppressing troubles we're having in other areas of our life. And so, sometimes it's time to take a look in the mirror and really get real. And if we need to go get some professional help or a therapist or to do, time to do that, because alcohol is going to trash your hormones. It's going to trash your sleep, which is another factor that goes into belly fat and hormones. It's going to trash your liver. So it's really, and of course, it's like if you want to have a glass of champagne on a anniversary or something,
Yeah, special
you
occasion.
know,
Yeah.
yeah, like go for it. But if it's something you're doing on a regular daily basis, that's really going to get in the way. And so is late night eating, so is overeating on the carbs and the sugars and the processed foods and even grains for a lot of women. And it could be it's different now because right, you could have gotten away with it like you said, this always worked for me and now
Yeah.
it's not. And we just
Yeah.
have to kind of take that deep breath or that pause, as I like to say, and we have to go, okay, well, that was then, this was
Yeah.
now, my
Yeah.
body is changing, and how am I going to change with it? And what are the changes I'm going to make with it? And balancing your hormones is going to help even that playing field out, of course.
The thing with alcohol, it's interesting. I think you're right. Like maybe years ago, it started off with just having it on special occasion. And what I've seen, and I trained lots and lots of women, and lots of women had issues with it. And so, it would eventually become this habitual thing. Like every night I make dinner, I have a glass of wine. Every weekend we have multiple glasses of wine. And what happens is I open the bottle and then I just finish the bottle. And so people would start to see weight gain and yeah, the impact on sleep and et cetera, all of those things, which means the next day we wake up, we're not eating well, we're not exercising because we're hungover, we just don't feel good. And so it can be this cycle. But I think what you said I liked because so many of us have maybe things in our life, maybe it's stressors, maybe it's our relationships. Right. Maybe it's a stress at our job with our employer, or stress with our children or aging parents. And it's so easy in the moment to grab a glass of wine or whatever alcohol, you like, or whatever vice really that's going to give us that instant dopamine hit that's going to make us feel good because we anticipate that we will feel good from the vice, right? If it's shopping, if it's gambling, if it's overeating, if it's alcohol, if it's sex, we know that it's going to feel like relief for a moment, and then we have to chase that. Then we get the down, and then we're looking for the next sort of dopamine hit or the next high, and that's how it becomes this addiction, right? That we're in this cycle of a sudden. And so I think it's such a big part of that is, like you said, let's turn inward then and see what the real issue is. Is it that I can't live with these uncomfortable feelings? Is it that it's hard for me to face some of the realities that are happening around me and I just want to escape or I just want to not feel? And yeah, I think that needs a little bit of a deeper look for a lot of us, right? We seem to just pass over it like, oh, it's just my glass of wine. I like it every night. It's my thing.
Right.
And it's like, why is it your thing? Or why does it have to be your thing? And could you choose another thing? Or could you just sit in those uncomfortable feelings and figure out what that's about?
Yeah, well, that's really that's the medicine. So the mindfulness, the sitting. I love
Yeah.
the poem The Guest House by Rumi, where he's
Yeah,
like all the negative emotions are knocking at your door, and he's saying, rather than sweep them under the carpet, like invite them in, have
that's
tea with
right.
anger, have tea with jealousy.
Yeah,
And
of
so
parts. Yeah.
and so I think it's interesting because I was going to start talking about a lot of physiology, and I will for those
Yeah.
of you that are waiting for the cortisol piece and the
Yeah.
estrogen. But it's interesting because a lot of times these things happen like belly fat. Now we're talking about addictions and uncomfortable emotions. And I think we often want, I have belly fat. Dr. Stills, can you fix that for me? And then when I'm doing a thorough intake and looking at the lifestyle, well, no, I don't want to give up my wine. I don't want to go to bed early. I've got to watch Netflix or I got to do whatever I got to do. That's the only time I have. And we have to really start to look at these things. I don't want to give up my bread or my dairy. I love my dairy. And so we make, we can get in our own way. So we have to really come to the table saying, I'm really ready, willing, and able to make the changes that I need to make, even if they're uncomfortable,
Yeah.
even if they're not so easy. because it's easy to say stop drinking wine, but that could, open up a whole Pandora's box. But in the end, maybe your belly fat is helping to lead you to deeper healing that's going to last for a lifetime and give you your, years in your life that you may not have had. So I think it's really important with insulin that we're looking. Insulin is inflammatory. It's like the fat maker. It's saying store fat, store fat. And
Yeah.
we have to, I've got one on, you can't see it because I've got a sweatshirt on, because it's only 65
Oh,
here.
the
And
glucose monitor.
it's a continuous glucose
Oh
monitor.
yeah, I haven't tried that yet. I want to.
And I think it's a really
Yeah.
helpful tool because
Yeah.
even in blood work, I measure glucose. I measure hemoglobin A1C, which is a glucose marker over the last 3 months. I measure a fasting insulin, but it's still a snapshot. It's still what happened this day. And it's still, the glucose over the 3 months gives us a little bit better idea. But what I've noticed with myself and with patients who I use this with is that even the hemoglobin A1C is limited because your average could be okay, but what if your average looks okay because you're having these high spikes and these low lows, but they averaged out to be okay, but actually it's not okay.
Right.
And so it's really helpful. I'm not saying you have to walk around with the needle stuck, and it really doesn't hurt. You don't even feel it.
Oh,
But to do it for a couple of months or to do it for a couple of
yeah.
months at a time and to really pay attention and see, because it's not just about what we eat. It's
Okay.
also
Stress.
stress, our
Yeah.
exercise,
Yeah.
our sleep, our habits. So you can really start to see, oh, wow, when I don't get to bed on time, my blood sugar rises or it
Yeah.
crashes. And
Good tool. Yeah.
yeah, so it's a really great tool and easy to do. And it really gives you that responsibility. It empowers you, but it gives you the responsibility to be like, all right, this went in my mouth. What's it doing to my body? Oh, I can scan my app and find out right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Okay. That I was a little bit leery because of the needle. Like it's a constant little in your arm, right? Or does it sit there and then it pokes you when you scan it? How does it work?
so I was scared too. I was like, yeah, I'm not interested in that. I like to be on the injecting side of the needles, not the receiving
I'm sure
side.
you do.
But you load it into this thing, you snap it in, you don't even feel it. And honestly, I forget it's there. You do not feel it. So the
Yeah.
needle is in my arm for 2 weeks, but you just don't feel it. And it's not like I don't do stuff. I'm active with it. I do all sorts of stuff and I forget it's there. Sometimes my grandbabies would be like, Bubby, what's this? I'll be like, oh yeah, I forgot I had that. So you really don't feel it. So if you're listening and like that's been a rate limiting factor,
Right.
trust me. And I'm pretty wimpy when it comes to stuff like this. So if I could do it, you could do
Well,
it.
I like that it's a tool that keeps you accountable to yourself and it's just instant data, which is great because then you go, okay, next time I'm not going to do that because that's not great for me. Let's
Exactly.
talk about cortisol. You mentioned that. That is a huge thing for so many people. And I'd love to just take a few moments to delve into the world of cortisol.
So yes, so when we hear belly fat, we hear cortisol.
Yeah.
High cortisol stress makes you have belly fat. And that is true. If your cortisol is high, it can put down more fat deposition in your abdomen and lead to the menobelly. The issue that I just like to bring to the table is that's not always what I see clinically.
Okay.
So it makes sense. And, physiologically, it sounds good. But a lot of times, by the time we're in menopause and we're in our late 40s, our 50s, we've already used up our cortisol. So the days of the high cortisol are, a decade or two behind us. And our body has actually stopped producing cortisol. And that stresses the body too. And so I'm really finicky about when you're going to look at your adrenal glands, you really need to test, you shouldn't guess, because symptoms of high cortisol and low cortisol can be mimic each other and they can be overlapping and you can feel tired, you can feel stressed, you can feel brain fog, you can have sleep issues, you can have blood sugar issues. But the treatment is opposite because on one, you actually need to bring up the cortisol. You need to feed the adrenal gland so it can start producing a circadian rhythm again of cortisol. And on the other, yes, you need to tone it down. You need your melatonin, you need your phosphatidylserine and your L-theanine and things of that nature. And if you need to bring it up, I actually sometimes give bioidentical cortisol. If the levels are really, really low, I actually
Yeah.
get, I do that quite frequently.
Okay.
And or you're going to give glandulars and vitamin C. You're going to make sure your vitamin C is optimized. You're going to give B vitamins and pantothenic acid, which is B5, really feeds the adrenal glands. But you don't want to just give a high dose of one B vitamin without giving a broad spectrum multi-B, or you can deplete some of the other Bs. So that's really important. Vitamin C you want to do to bowel tolerance if you really want to saturate yourself. You can't digest or absorb, I should say, more than 2,000 milligrams tops of vitamin C, probably closer to 1,500 milligrams. So you want to take it in small divided doses. And if you take your too much, your body will let you know because you will get very gassy. You will get very
Yeah.
bloated. You will have diarrhea, and so you'll be
Yeah.
like, okay, I've saturated. But a lot of times, if we're really stressed and our adrenals are depleted, it takes quite a while to get to that point because we're just so in need of the vitamin C.
So could you not just use like the odd high intensity exercise to increase cortisol? We know that that stresses the body and increases cortisol. I know it's different than stress cortisol and what that does, but if you're giving injections for cortisol, would there be another way that you could naturally boost that in your body? Like would
Well, I
exercise
don't give
be one of the things?
injections. It's
Oh,
oral.
it's oral. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But so that's an interesting question. And theoretically, yes, the problem is it's like a fine line because if your cortisol is totally depleted and you do a high intense, it's going to stress your body so much to do that high intensity exercise. Like you really need to send your adrenal glands to Aruba and let them kind of chill on a
Okay.
hammock for a little while and
I see.
regenerate them and renourish them. And a lot of it goes back to exactly what we were just saying. You're not going to fix or heal your adrenal glands just out of a pill bottle, whether it's an herb or it's a glandular, it's the bioidentical cortisol. It has to be lifestyle. It has to be
Yeah.
that you're sleeping, you're not burning the candle at every end, you are not doing the alcohol and the sugars and the bad
Yeah.
carbs and processed foods. It has to be emotionally. So it really is like you were saying, are you in a bad relationship? Are you in a bad job? Do you have a family member who's, toxic and you've got to cut out? A lot of it really needs to center. And it's like, this is the time, ladies, like we're
Yeah.
menopausal. Like now is the time to kind of be like, all right, I'm grabbing the bull by the horns and I'm not afraid to say no. I'm not afraid to say I'm going to love you, but it's going to be from the opposite side of the street because I'm going to take care of me.
Boundaries. Yeah.
Boundaries.
Yeah.
Boundary queen, right?
I know one of my favorite quotes, I'm going to forget the name of the author right now, but he basically says that when I put up a boundary, it's not like it's an electric fence to keep you away. It's a halo around me that says I will be treated sacredly. And I
Mm.
love that. John something, I can't remember. I'll try to remember and put it on the screen. But okay, you said thyroid. I don't know much about thyroid. Mine's always been good in every test that I've had. But how does that impact belly fat or how does that impact body composition?
So if our thyroid is not optimally functioning, that is the driver of our BMR, of our basal metabolic rate, and is intimately related with fat and weight loss. And what's interesting is that our thyroid, so when we go through menopause, we think we're losing our estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, but what I see is the thyroid also kind of like comes to a screeching halt often
What
along
would cause
with the
that for
hormone.
people? What causes that? Is
It
it
could be
in conjunction with the hormone drop and fluctuation? Is that what's causing it, or is it? Yeah,
Yeah.
something
Well,
else.
I think toxicity
Okay.
plays a big role. So whether it be mercury toxicity, mercury can really drive an autoimmune thyroid issue. And then the whole like fluoride and chlorine and bromide, these halides, these taxins will block thyroid hormone, they block iodine. And so we have, if you're not drinking filtered water, if you're not showering with a filter, we have a lot of opportunity to get exposed if you're eating enriched breads and drinking Mountain Dew. And there's lots of opportunity to get these toxins into our body. So I think that's part of it. I think stress just in general. I think just the overload and the stress on the system and the thyroid is intimately related with progesterone, which is intimately related with cortisol and stress. So it always ends up being this big spider web of one pulls and it pulls the other one down. And so I think another thing is that a lot of women walk around with thyroids that they're told are fine. Like you said, yours is fine, and I believe you. You don't look like you have thyroid issues. But a lot of women are told it's fine,
Oh,
and it's
yeah.
not fine. And they're kind of gaslit. And so it just goes on and on and on. But you can tell, you can check basal body temperatures under your arm. And if
Okay.
your temperature is under 98.6, if you have a low temperature, that's a sign of low thyroid, probably low adrenals. If
Okay.
you are cold all the time, if you are constipated, if you're gaining weight, and honestly, like we have to be honest with ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm
Yes, we
gaining
sure
weight.
do
Yeah.
because some
Yeah.
people aren't.
I'm gaining
Yeah.
weight, but oh yeah, I forgot to tell
Yeah.
you, I snack at night and I eat like 3 donuts
Yeah.
and
I
chips.
know.
Well, of course you're
I
gaining weight.
know. Yeah, but if
But
you're in a true calorie deficit and you're attempting weight loss and you've done it for, a good month and you see nothing or you're gaining, yes, then
yes. Yeah.
let's look
And
at
so
something else.
if you're constipated, if you're depressed, if your hair is falling out, if your nails are brittle, if you have muscle aches that are unexplained, there's like 100
Yeah, symptoms.
types of symptoms that relate to thyroid.
Yeah.
And what I would just like to say, I think, just for everyone listening, is that a lot of people talk about, so if you're listening, on our circuit, you listen to the alternative stuff, you probably know by now, like TSH isn't enough. You have to have your free T3 and your free T4 and your reverse T3 and your anti-TPO and your thyroglobulin. There's those 6 magic numbers that usually the endocrinologist or your OBGYN or your primary only runs a TSH, maybe a free T4. But then beyond that, you have to make sure they're being read properly, because you can get all those done and then you're still told everything's fine. And so one of the key things is the free T3. The range is about 2.4 to 4.2. And so if you come in at 3.4, it's like you're told you're fine. You're right in the middle of the range. And usually we like to be in the middle of the range. But my experience of over 22 years now is that with the free T3, for a very large segment of the population of women, they need to be at the high end. They need to
Mm,
be at the 4.2, or they need to be at 5.2 or 6.2. They need to be out of the range. And
yes.
so if you're in the middle of the range and you're told you're fine, but you're like, yeah, but my
Feel
hair's
fine.
falling out, I'm gaining
Yeah.
weight, I can't think straight, I'm depressed, I can't, and you
Yeah.
don't have to have all the symptoms, even if you just
Yeah.
have one, like then find someone who's willing, like I will do trials with my patients then and see how they feel and get them to a dose where all of a sudden they're like, bam, oh my God, 5 pounds just like whoop, just my belly's gone down. Like I
Yeah.
just needed my thyroid turned on.
Wow. Okay, yeah, that is good. That's a good thing to inquire about and get all of those tests that you just listed done. And typically would a naturopathic doctor do that, or you said a GP may not?
Yeah, so typically a naturopath will do that, or a very alternative or open-minded MD.
Yeah. Okay.
But my experience is just I think, like I was saying, there's the part of first just getting the right test done. And
Yeah.
then there's the part of getting, you got the right test done, but now were they interpreted and were you treated
Yeah.
properly from those results? And
Right.
often I see patients coming in, they've had all the great tests, and I'm like, well, did they do anything for that? No. Did they do anything for that? No. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, let's do something about it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's kind of a
Um,
thing.
yeah, for sure. I just want to, I know we're going to sign off shortly here, but before we do, I just wanted to talk a little bit about nutrition in terms of, wait, talk to us about what a day of eating now that you're post-menopause. What does that look like for you to help you stave off belly fat? What is that looking like these days?
Um, I tend to not eat first thing in the morning and get
Do you
myself
do a
hydrated.
little intermittent fasting or time
Yeah,
restricted
a
eating? Yeah.
little, but I also it's not very often, but if I wake up and I'm hungry, I eat.
Yeah.
I
So
like to
then,
feel intuitive,
yeah,
connected, but
I
I'll
like that too.
hydrate. I'll use my LMNT or my Ultima, my electrolytes. I for the longest time up until 3 years ago, so I started drinking coffee at 52. I was like a late bloomer in that area.
That
And
is.
so I'm kind of playing with it now. Sometimes I'll have a cup of coffee. Lately, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't. I think I might feel, I'm not sure. So that's kind of a work in progress right now,
Yeah,
whether coffee is
sure.
staying or going.
Yeah.
I think, a cup of black coffee is, fine to do as long as you're doing a good brand of coffee. And then I usually eat, lunch. And that's my biggest meal of the day. By then I'm hungry. And it's usually salmon, beef, piece of fish. If I'm gonna have some grains, which is not all the time, it's usually quinoa, or I like banza, the chickpea rice. Sometimes I'll make that or a little lentil pasta, but I could go weeks without doing that. And when it's a little colder, I might tend to do a little more of that. I have a sweet tooth, so I like to, I'll have a snack in the afternoon. I might have some paleo chocolate or a grain-free brownie or something. I like to have a little feed my inner child, and but I always make sure it's, gluten-free, dairy,
Yeah.
it's everything. It's everything. My kids are always like, it's taste-free too, right, Mom? And I'm like, no, no, it's, like I like JoJo's is a brand of chocolate. I have in
Yeah.
my fridge right now that we found at Costco.
Yeah.
So it just
Yeah.
depends. If it's hot, I'll do a smoothie. If it's cold, and I'm in Arizona, my definition of cold is probably different than yours.
Yeah.
I'll do more soups or stews. So I like to eat according to the season. So
Yeah.
if I'm here in the summer and it's 120 degrees, I'm doing more salad, more smoothies, not so heavy because it's so hot. Whereas now, we're in our winter, it's a chilly 68 out today. So I'll have
I feel
beef.
really bad for you.
Got my jacket on. So, then I'll have beef, I'll have heavier foods. But I keep it pretty simple.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just, I'm not, I do like vegetables. I'm also, you're just catching me in a like, am I going to try carnivore? I don't think carnivore is like something I would do forever, but my patients who do it all feel really good. So I'm contemplating if I want to try that for a couple of months just to see it. I don't think it's good to do any kind of like fad
Dream. Yeah.
diet for like a long period of time. I'm getting ready to do a Prolon, the 5-day water fasting mimicking diet. I'm doing that Monday. So I'll do that once a quarter just to induce autophagy. Um, so I just kind of mix it up. I really listen to my body. I like eggs. I use dairy-free cheese. What else do I like to eat? Some nuts and seeds and some nut butters and just your big, I'm like, I love broccoli. I, I,
It's
I like
a good one.
veggies. I'm like
Yeah.
obsessed with cabbage. I think cabbage is delicious.
Oh yeah, me
You know,
too.
I'll eat a sweet potato or squash. And, you know, I'm human. I'll eat a white
Yeah.
potato. You know, it
Yeah.
doesn't like destroy my blood sugar like you would think it
Yeah.
would. I'll check in on a
Yeah.
CGM. So
Well, and when you have lean muscle tissue, that help I mean, it uses the glycogen from things like a potato, right? So it's your workouts, you're moving daily, you're using up the energy that you consume. And the problem is that when people don't move and they don't exercise and they're sedentary, and then they're eating highly processed foods and foods low in fiber or low in protein, and it's just this, cycle that can all of a sudden lead to some belly fat. And yeah, so I really like what you said, just this approach to whole foods the majority of the time, right? You have a celebration, have a glass of champagne, that's okay, but it's what you're doing 80 to 90% of the time that is really important, right? To the trajectory of where we're heading for our health.
yeah, and I don't really cheat. I don't go like to me, cheating is like, I don't even know what it would be because I don't go to fast food. I don't want to do that stuff because I'm really in touch like with eating for how I feel, and that stuff never feels good. So I don't ever eat processed food. I would never drink soda or garbage like that. I never eat gluten. I never eat dairy. Those things do not work in my body. So I don't see the point in cheating. And even grains, my body really doesn't like grains. Even like just a plain rice, it really doesn't like it. So I don't really do it because
Yeah,
when
because
you
it
know,
hurts. Yeah,
yeah, it's not worth feeling bloated or crappy or
yeah,
constipated or whatever you're going to feel, or nasal congestion or a headache or depressed, or, our food affects us, joint pain in so many ways. And
yeah,
so to me, it's just not worth it. So I eat a high protein diet, and I'll eat veggies, fruit. I end up eating fruit more, I think, when I'm hanging out with my grandbabies because
yeah,
they like fruit, but I'm not a huge fruit person. When we were in
yeah.
Costa Rica, yeah, I was eating that fresh fruit. It was delicious, but it's not
Oh
my
yeah.
necessarily my go-to.
No.
See me, I drink a lot of water.
Yeah, that's good. I am a big fruit person. I do love fruit every day. Yeah, it's interesting. It's to pay attention to what is the best for your body. And I think so often we will just like hang on to every word that someone says and go, well, I'm going to try that. I'm going to try this. I'm going to try that, instead of doing our own due diligence. And I always say this, to be the Sherlock Holmes of your own body and figure out what works the best for you. Sure, we can glean insight and knowledge from professionals and people who have, read studies and been in the field for a long time. But at the end of the day, you have to figure out what works for you. And I love the part that you said about I'm not cheating because that hurts my body. Like I don't like how I feel. And I'm so with you on that. Like I hate seeing influencers are like cheat day and they're just shoving down pizzas and beer and just everything down their gullet. And hey, don't get me wrong, I like a pizza and a beer. I would have that periodically, but to just go overboard and eat 7,000 calories of treat food and cheap food just because they've restricted for so long, and then now they get a cheat meal. I don't know. I've never agreed with cheat meals. I think it's dumb because I think it's dumb to be completely restrictive as well.
Yes.
So I'm like, just have some balance in there. And if you have this as your lifestyle forever and ever, amen, you won't need to cheat on it because that you're just going to love feeling good when you wake up. You're going to love having good sleeps. You're going to love having good workouts. You're going to love your skin and your energy and your bowel movements and all of that. It's just going to feel better, right?
Yeah,
So,
I 3000% agree. And I think, I just want to say, like, yeah, you can. It's why I don't often give, like, this is what you should eat
yeah,
in menopause. I tell how you should eat, why you should eat, when you should eat. Like, I stop eating before bed a couple of
I
hours,
love
kitchen
that. Yeah,
sink, because Yes, you should eat blueberries and broccoli and high fiber foods and nuts and fish and grass-fed and finished beef. But when it comes down to the day, I just check in with what I want. And if I don't feel like eating vegetables, I don't like veggie shame myself. You didn't get your 10 servings
I
of
know.
veggies today.
Yeah.
I eat what my body needs. And sometimes my body just wants some eggs and avocado. It just wants, and it doesn't want the mushrooms and the arugula in it. And other times I'm like, ooh, I can't wait to make arugula. So I just follow what I'm craving. When you're balanced, you can
Yeah.
just listen, your body will kind of guide the way. And yeah, I'm glad you said that about cheat days. You won't really see me drinking a beer or
Yeah.
eating pizza. I'm from New York, I love a good pizza, but my body will be really pissed if I eat pizza.
Correct.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
I just not doing it. It's not worth it.
No, it's not worth, some things are just not. Well, thank you for listening and tuning in, everyone. And Dr. Sharon, thanks as always. So informational and just another great episode to help us think about what it means to be healthy, to optimize our health, and of course, to carry a lower percentage of body fat, because that ultimately is going to increase our health quotient as well. So, where can people find you, get a hold of you, work with you? Can you just give us your little handles here, and I'll make sure they're on the screen too.
Dr. Sharon Stills and drstills.com. And we have a new 6,500 square foot multidisciplinary clinic opening here in Scottsdale in
Very
in
exciting.
the
It's
fall. So stay tuned
amazing.
for that. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Okay, if you're in the Arizona area, check her out. Go see her. Go to her new clinic. That'd be amazing. I'd love to do that.
You'll have
You
to
just have
come.
to, you have to open one up here in Kelowna.
I'll be there like 1 month of summer you have.
That's it. No, we're warmer here. We're on the West Coast, so we have at least 4 months.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you in the next episode.